I've never seen a diamond in the flesh. I cut my teeth on wedding rings in the movies, and I'm not proud of my address.
We're not just building muscle, we're building men. In the quiet hours, in the unfiltered moments, in the conversations that happen before the world wakes up. This is The Gloom, where brotherhood forms in the dark so we can lead in the light, where vulnerability is strength and leadership is handed from man to man, one story at a time. Our mission is to empower, exhort, and inspire men to achieve their best selves through stories of reinvigorated male community leadership. We bring you weekly interviews with F3 Omaha PAX, ordinary men doing extraordinary things in fitness, fellowship, faith, and leadership, because we believe that every man has a story, and reinvigoration starts when that story is shared. This is The Glue in the Gloom. Shout out to our sponsors, Avior Wealth Management, Liberty Core Real Estate, Major Team Mortgage, Exclusively Eye Care, Omaha Laser Dentistry, and McNamara Law Firm. We appreciate your support. Liberty Core Real Estate is your homegrown real estate broker. If you're looking to buy or sell real estate, whether personal or investment, Armando, aka Brian, and Megan Michaels' company is ready to serve you. With Command Center in Old Town Elkhorn and agents all throughout the metro, they are more than ready to guide and serve you in your next real estate endeavor. Whether your next move needs to happen now or in 5 years, call or text Armando at 402-770-2165 to get your questions answered. And a special offer for F3 Nation PAX members, Liberty Core will donate $250 to your sponsor of choosing for every closed transaction. Stop looking, start finding today with Liberty Core Real Estate. Yo, Gloom listeners, it's your boy, The Plague. Let me talk to you about our brother, Amazin, a.k.a. Patrick McNamara with McNamara Law Firm right here in Old Town Elkhorn. Amazin serves as outside counsel for small business owners, helping to form contracts, review agreements, and provide practical advice that keeps you focused on growth. He also works with families to create living trusts that protect your kids and safeguard what you've built. Reach out to our brother, Amazin, today at McNamara Law Firm and start putting the right plan in place for your business, your family, and your future. Now, let's get back to the gloom. Shout out to our sponsors, Avior Wealth Management, Liberty Core Real Estate, Major Team Mortgage.
And we're back on the Gloom, sponsored by Elmer's and DoorDash. We're here with Honey Maid. This is Gator and Plague. We are coming at you live from the Nomad, and we're excited to be here. We're excited to talk to you today. Thanks for coming. So we'll just start off. Tell us about that first workout. Who EH'd you? How did that first workout go? Where were you at a fitness level? You know, and more importantly, how you got your name.
Yeah. So the EH on PaxNet credit definitely goes to Wentworth, but it's probably split between Wentworth and my wife. Went probably worked on me for about a year. We go to church together, and he had been asking for a long time about, like, when are you going to come out and do this? And as he had every other able-bodied male at our church. So I go to church with Zebo and Black Flag and Wentworth and Tuner and Wildcat and whole bunch of really great guys.
Nice.
And a lot of those trace back to Wentworth. But I had put it off for really a year. And some of that was because I knew we had a baby coming, and it was like, this is not the right time. It really would have been the right time, but I was more of a night owl. There was a much higher likelihood at that point in my life that if I was up at 4 a.m., it was because I hadn't gone to sleep yet, not because I was getting up for a pre-run or something like that. So worked for a long time to get that one. And he really set the stage well for me and got a lot of those guys out to the Coliseum, where I did have my first workout. But the funny part where I give credit to my wife is, and I didn't think about this at the time, but she is friends with another PAX, an unnamed PAX member's wife. And she ended up showing me a picture where this PAX member's wife was kind of giving him a shout out for, like, look at my husband. He lost all this weight. And it was like, wow, good for this unnamed PAX member.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, it was kind of my wife trying to motivate me to be like, look, and
Maybe.
it did.
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah.
I remember thinking like, I want my wife to look at me that way. I want my wife talking about me
Yeah.
on Facebook that way. But back to it. Coliseum. It was a golden pike queue. It
Okay.
was end of September of 21.
Okay.
And it was like a bomb went off.
Mm.
I did not know what I was in for. We were doing partner carries. We were doing wheelbarrows, bear crawls, and it kicked my butt.
Yeah.
I was your typical FNG. I showed up with my keys and a water bottle and was like, where do I put these? At one point, I was so overwhelmed that I left to go take a drink of water, and that ended up being while the COT was happening. So I didn't even experience the full thing because I was so oh, I can't see straight. What is going on? And subsequently, I probably got lucky with the name Honey Maid. I didn't get a lot of opportunity to talk about any of those, what are your embarrassing stories? What do you do for fun? Anything like that. I just said that my first name was Graham, and immediately 4 people in unison were like, Cracker, we have to name him Cracker. And thank goodness, I think it was slow pitch, maybe. But he's like, no. You cannot just name this large white boy Cracker.
Right.
This is not going to be okay. And somebody shouted out Honey Maid, and GP immediately was like, that which is a variety of Graham Cracker.
That is awesome. Yeah, 2021 would have been a very turbulent time to name you Cracker. I think.
Yeah.
Even now would be. It's so funny how many guys their wife is a part of that EH story,
even secretly here.
Yeah. I think there's just a lot of that. But I'm curious, when you think about that time, gosh, the pandemic was kind of over, but still impacting all of our lives. Were you active at all before that, or what was?
I was not active at all,
Okay.
especially at that time. I had a 9-month-old at home, and I was coming out of COVID, not seeing that many people, having more of a sedentary lifestyle, a lot more working from home. Yeah, I can take this call in sweatpants. That's okay. But with my infant, I was getting up every night and warming bottles and feeding her. And that inevitably led to kind of that angel devil on your shoulder where it'd be like, you're such a good dad. You deserve those Oreos while the bottle is heating up.
Yeah.
Eat half a sleeve. You deserve it.
Yeah.
And inevitably, I gained a lot of weight to the point where I was getting ready for a meeting and I put on a suit. Well, I tried to put on a suit, and the pants, it was a suck in all the way.
Yeah.
The pockets are pulling really bad.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my, oh no, I really do need to do this thing. So I joke, but really seriously, I bought a pair of fat pants that day, and I kind of lived in those fat pants for the next couple months, but I showed up to the Coliseum the very next day.
I love it.
It's funny because that your COVID story is similar to many people, especially young fathers, going through that. And it's like, did you work out a lot? Did you eat too much, or did you drink too much? I always think, as Home Alone put it, did you become a hunk, a chunk, or a drunk?
Yeah. Oh, that's really good.
So did you feel yourself after that first workout motivated to come back again because it was so physically demanding?
It was a little scary.
Yeah.
I was saying earlier, I kind of got lucky with Honey Maid because I didn't go to coffee that first day, but did kind of a debrief with Wentworth in the parking lot at Westside. And again, just chugged the rest of that giant Nalgene bottle and then proceeded to puke immediately. That my body was just in flux. It didn't know what was going on. Sorry, what?
So did you come out the next day, or did you take some days to rest?
My arms didn't work.
Yeah.
No, I said I was going to be there the next day, and I didn't even ask what was available the next day because in my head it was like, you're not going to be there. No. So I think I came back the next Tuesday and
Okay.
did the Coliseum again, and then kind of started a rotation of whatever was going on at Westside or whatever was going on at Swanson, whether it be Coliseum and Battlefield or the Coop and the Mess Hall. And that was kind of all I did for probably that first year.
And so what was that first year like for you as far as your fitness level? Did you feel like you were making some pretty dramatic improvements? Did you throw away the fat pants or?
The fat pants were probably still needed for a couple months there, but there was a nice achievement day where it was like, I fit into the suits again.
Yeah.
Yes, we made it. And I still have those fat pants and look at them every once in a while and just kind of laugh. It was like, how did you let this happen?
You got to keep them, right, for motivation.
Frame them, right?
Yeah.
Throw them up on the wall.
It's funny because when I think about Honey Maid and just your fitness, I think about now where you're at. Like, I feel like you just ran a marathon at a sub-7 pace or something. I may be making up the pace there, but like
7:14.
7:14. Yeah, like that's
Nice.
pretty darn good. Like, I don't think I could do a marathon at that pace, and I consider myself in pretty good shape. But like, how'd you
That's
go?
overly generous of you to say.
How'd you go from fat pants to like a 7-minute pace on a full marathon?
Oh man, running is interesting because I wasn't athletic as a kid. There's something I definitely came into, and I still struggle to consider myself athletic.
Hmm.
Like growing up, my parents always tried to get me into sports because it felt like my brother was doing sports, and you'll find your way eventually. But it just never really took. But I started F3, started kind of making leaps and bounds and accelerating, and was getting a lot of encouragement from kind of the elder statesmen of F3 who saw that, hey, encouragement could really build this guy up. This could be life-changing for this guy. But I ended up, the running traces back to somewhere around 2022. I saw a Jesse Itzler. I don't know if you guys know Jesse.
Oh yeah, and this wasn't the thing he did with the Navy SEAL Chad Smith, or
I'm not familiar with that.
Okay,
He has this concept. He's now monetized it and created a product out of it, which I don't love as much as when it was just kind of a idea.
Yeah.
But it was his big calendar where you try to like plant a flag in every single year as like having done something big and memorable. And a lot of that stems from having my daughter and feeling like that first year just like flew by, where it popped up on some social media feed where it was the idea of like doing more adventures, getting out of your regular well-cut groove and doing some things that make you uncomfortable, and really planting that flag about this was the year I did X. And for me, who had just getting my running legs under me, 2023 was going to be the year I wanted to run a marathon. And I'd never run a race before that. No 5Ks, 10Ks. I was doing pre-runs. And there was a second part to it where apparently I'm easily influenced because another influencer had this topic about doing something that feels superhuman and just getting it done, and how that can unlock something in you. It's kind of similar to the Bannister effect. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Roger Bannister breaking the 4-minute mile, and suddenly everybody can break the 4-minute, so to speak.
Yeah.
A lot of people chased it for a long time, but it was trying to unlock something in myself and do something that I previously couldn't have imagined doing. So that's really where running took off from. And it's just kind of grown from there, and it's become so many things to me. It isn't therapy, but it can be therapeutic.
Yeah.
It's something that feels like I have a high degree of control over in a world where sometimes, especially with kids and varying schedules, just grabbing on to something that is like, okay, I know that I get to do X number of miles today. I'm going to go out and and I just grab onto that hold on as hard as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you'll run, I'll see sometimes on Strava, right? You'll run midday, or I'm sort of like, oh wow, Honey Maid. I was sitting in meetings, Honey Maid just ran a half or whatever.
It does happen. Professionally, my schedule is generally more backloaded in the day than it is front loaded.
Okay.
So there's a reality that if I'm going to take some time to do something for myself, that time is in the morning rather than in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that question a lot. At one point during a pre-run, it was like, can I ask something? I was like, yeah, shoot. I was like, what do? Do you have a job? It's like, like, yes, but my schedule just looks a little different than most people. Yeah.
I love it. So Jesse Itzler, he does this thing with Chad Wright, who's a Navy SEAL. They're training for a 100-mile race, and guys will have to go watch it. But this is where, if you've ever heard me say, let me tell you something that nobody knows, I don't get tired. That's where that comes from, because he was on this 100-mile race, and they're like at mile 80, and this Navy SEAL looks at him and is like, I don't get tired. And then made him say it out loud. It's sort of this idea of like, if you say that out loud, then maybe you won't get tired. It hasn't worked.
Speak it to truth. Yeah.
So running really started after F3 for you.
Oh,
sounds
yeah.
Like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even starting F3, I stayed away from all the running sites, which is funny to think about now that they're borderline the only ones that I go to.
Yeah.
But I was scared of Paradise.
Interesting.
I was like, I don't think I'll be able to keep up. And I'm like worried about getting dropped and left behind, which that just shows how new into F3 I was, that like we wouldn't allow that to happen. No man left behind. But I was very careful about picking my spots that I was like, all right, I need to know that we're in one location, because I was struggling early on.
Yeah.
It sounds like, from a fitness perspective, this was a pretty big change for you to start F3, and then you end up running, and then where you are now. Like, what do you attribute to the success of that? Like, what were the challenges on that, or was it the unique culture of F3 Omaha that kept you coming back? What was it that kind of kept you, moving forward?
So competition is great. And sometimes I get a little too into the competition, but there are a lot of guys that are like, I want to be like him. I want to go do the things he's doing. And that was a great motivator early on. And it was that, and probably a little bit of an addictive personality, that I have to make sure that the things that I point my focus in are healthy. I don't know that many people would consider the amount of running I do in a week healthy, but
Farva might.
It could be worse. Could be worse.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What's really cool is just thinking about the number of guys that come into F3, and I love your story, because I think outsiders looking in see a bunch of jocks and like sort of military guys, like getting out there working out, and so you're a guy like didn't play a ton of sports growing up, didn't come in as a runner, but you're there now, and so I guess wondering if you could share like what sort of learnings, either for the guy who's in the group and intimidated by all the running, or maybe for the rest of us that are not like fully pulling that guy in, or like how do we get more guys to bridge that gap like you've done?
So the first thing from a physiological standpoint is slow down and build that engine, because if you're running really hard all the time, you're just tearing your body up and you aren't actually building anything. The second part is just being as inclusive and being as complimentary. And I go back to early on, there were a couple guys who would see what I was doing and, man, you hit it really hard on the pre-run today. And I've tried to do that for guys moving forward, but it was a great motivation to be like, in some ways it was good, in some ways it was bad, because there was an element of like, people are watching.
Yeah.
That probably created some unhealthy habits as far as my own I need to go really fast today. I need to hit this pre-run as hard as possible. But on the positive side, it really did create the like, this is a good thing and I can keep building and I am building. And
Yeah.
it's not just the scale that's telling me I'm doing well.
Yeah. I love it. It's amazing how much those little comments, like we don't even think about them necessarily, and they mean a lot, especially as guys are trying to build.
They take a second,
yeah,
whether they're
yeah.
typed out in a comment on
Yeah.
Strava or
Yeah.
this morning I hit a couple guys with a looking svelte.
Yeah.
Are you down some weight? And it's just light up.
Yep.
Now, did you have, accountability text threads or, a group that you kind of got in with early on in your days of F3, kind of the second F part of it that also kept you motivated? The where you guys posting tomorrow text, was that part of your journey, or did you develop relationships in F3 in a different way?
Early on, again, going back to Wentworth, I think that's kind of everybody's reality that, okay, where are you going? You brought me out and you're
Mhm.
shepherding me through this. Where do we go next? Where should I go next? And I leaned on him heavily early on, even in my VQ. I didn't understand all of the structure of a pre-thing and a thing, and I sent him my VQ workout, and he was like, "Cut half of that. Way too much. Way too much."
Nice.
But it really did evolve. A lot of the structure of an accountability group and a shield lock came later, but did eventually come.
Hmm. What was the journey to coffee? You mentioned that first workout you didn't go to coffee. When did you start kind of introducing that into the routine?
Early on, it was tough to justify because I had an infant at home,
Mm-hmm.
and it was also just kind of a, I don't know. Well, I don't know what the inside of Village Grinder is going to look like, and I'm a little scared to find out. Whereas, like, if I could just go back and tell myself, like, you idiot, that's the best part.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that would be incredible. But it took a while, and it took somebody. You never come to coffee. What are you doing? And them probably describing it as the best part of F3. And I know we talk about the difference in like the workout is the dynamite and all of that. And it took a long time for that to sink in and understand that this is where the magic is, not the actual workout itself. I was very workout motivated early, probably a little too focused on like,
Yeah.
all right, got to get a really good workout today. But that eventually changed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting to think like every guy's timeline is maybe a little bit different there. And I don't know, like I've been in those same shoes where I'm like, yeah, I got to get home because I've actually, it's 6:15 and I've already got a text from my wife that the kids are up. And, so like it's tough to balance. Right. And we talk about like the concentrica and your wife and kids being first. I would be curious, maybe give us a little bit of the background. So, talk through like your wife and then remind us how many kids you have, ages, all that
Yeah.
stuff.
So my wife, Maggie, and I went to high school together, and we did not date in high school.
Oh,
We
interesting.
reconnected after the fact. She had gone to UNL, and I had gone to a small college in Iowa, and got reconnected through my best friend who was dating one of Maggie's best friends. So it was funny, like the world brings us back together. Combination of Omaha is such a small place.
Yeah.
But we have 2 kids. Lucy is 5 and Charlie is 2.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what, I would be curious, how has F3 impacted some of those core relationships? Have you brought the kids out for 2.0? Maybe not yet.
I haven't brought the kids out
Yeah.
to 2.0 beatdowns yet. And some of that is great
Yeah.
because my kids are incredible sleepers most days.
Yeah.
So that's maybe the reason that I give myself for, no, she doesn't need to see this yet. No, she's okay. She'd probably do great. She loves to run and jump and do all the stuff, but she takes a little while to warm up. She is definitely, if I'm comfortable here, I'm going to let everybody know I'm comfortable girl. But at times, I know you've talked about it where it just ends up being you carrying your daughter around.
Yeah, that's
Where
been my experience.
I think that would be my reality
Yeah.
with a 2.0 beatdown. But
Yeah. What and so thinking back to your story about your wife showing you the picture of the other guy, how has this impacted your marriage at all? I guess you had another kid after you started, so maybe there's something
had
there.
another kid. What do you know? It's been great. There have been a lot of times where if I'm not able to post, I hear about it from my wife because I'm a little
Hmm.
not angsty, but it's just like you got a lot of energy you didn't get out today.
Yeah.
I've had to take some downtime. I had hernia surgery in January, and I had to take a whole month off after that.
Mm.
And I remember coming home after my first workout, and I was just beaming from ear to ear and
Mhm.
just radiating energy. And I'm sure I think I said something to my wife along the lines of, "Oh my gosh, it was so good to be back. All the guys." And I think she just hit me with a, "You think?"
Yeah. Yeah.
She knew I was missing it really, really bad.
Hmm.
So as far as prioritizing all these different things in your life, I mean, you've got you do have a job, right? You
Correct.
do work for a living.
Yeah, we verified that.
Right. And you're training for marathons. That takes a lot of time. You've got little kids. And then you've got all this energy, that your wife has recognized. So what's been your approach to the challenge of trying to find balance and all that? And what can you share with guys like Plague and I that struggle with that immensely?
Yeah.
I don't know if I have any expert opinions on that. Trying to balance everything is hard. I have to run a lot of days really early.
Mm.
So I'm not, I saw Farva did a 227 night
Yeah.
lifting this morning. I'm not that point, but I did get out at 4:30 this morning to make sure that I could get in what I wanted to get in and still get to coffee and get home. So it's tough and you got to pick your spots. I definitely found myself in a place last year where I was overextended and trying to burn the candle on both ends. And
Mhm.
there were some physical manifestations of that where I developed an eye tick and I wasn't sleeping well. And
Yeah.
I attributed it to all of the things except you can't go to F3 every single day and try to do all the mileage and do all of the stuff and do all of that on 3.5 hours of sleep. Like
Yeah.
I was trying to blame it on I need to eat more bananas, just not enough potassium. And it almost took my 5'2" wife like pushing me, being like, "You dummy.
Yeah.
I know what this is, but you can't acknowledge it."
Yeah.
So I've definitely struggled with trying to do too much. And you give up some things here and there and you have to prioritize and figure out what works and what days are okay and what aren't.
Mm.
Yeah. I always say that there's two things that we in F3 could do better at. One is stretching, the other is sleeping.
Yeah.
And those two things really make everything else easier, but you do have to give up some things along the way. You can't do everything if you're going to make sure you're taking care of your entire body, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm learning it. You can't overcompensate for lack of sleep with energy drinks either, because that's not,
We've all tried.
yeah. What's interesting is I'm hearing your story. Something I want to ask you about because your relationship with your wife, I think, is obviously that's our most important relationship. But what I hear you sort of referencing are these moments where just your communication seems clear, and there seem to be these moments where she's bringing something up to you and you're actually maybe listening, which I know is something I've struggled with, like sort of this like, but really, right? If that's our most important relationship and they know us the best, maybe we probably should be listening more, or at least like when they say something, give it a little more weight. But I don't know, how is it? Because that's sort of my impression from some of the stories I'm hearing you tell. But how does it actually
The
work?
ultimate life hack, actually listening to our wives.
Yeah.
They have such insight. They've got, in some cases, a 10,000-foot view of what's going on in our lives that we can't see the forest through the trees. So I rely so much on my wife for kind of her wisdom of where am I going wrong? What's happening? What are we doing here? And I really appreciate her for that. We have the ability to have those candid conversations. And it's taken a while to get there. There used to be some, no, I can't hear that from you.
Yeah.
I need to hear that from somebody else. Either it's a delicate balance sometimes with you're too close, no, or you're too far away. You're not right in the middle where I'm able to receive this from. But yeah.
How has that worked then as you've developed a shield lock where now you have like some men that can hold you accountable, and then you've also got like, how have you sort of managed those two different relationships?
Yeah, the shield lock is so interesting. I used this example at a Q source recently, but early on, I think maybe about a year in, I started doing pre-runs, and I kind of eased into that, doing my own little pre-runs where I was like, I can't go with those guys. I need to do a 1.8 mile lap of West Side. Like, I couldn't possibly do 3.1 mile. No. That's not me. But I was showing up late because I had a baby at home, and sometimes me walking heavy footed around would wake a baby, and there was you woke her up, you got to settle her back down
Same.
reality.
Yeah.
And I showed up to a pre-run at the Coliseum, and I was getting out of my car just as everybody was leaving. Would have been nice to get there a little early and stretch.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. And I remember yelling like, wait, I'm here. And someone yelled back to me. I didn't appreciate it at the time, but nobody's going to wait for you. Get here on time.
Wow.
And I did not take that well. And I tried to spin it around because it was a criticism that I needed to hear, but I didn't like where it was coming from about like, what happened to pick up the 6? What happened? No, those two things are not the same.
Yeah.
But subsequently, 2 years later, my shield lock does a run every other Thursday, and they joke pretty consistently about there is a defined order of who pulls into the parking lot at what time. And I am always the last. And that had to be pointed out to me. And I live kind of on the balance of, I've got time. I've got time.
Yeah.
I've got time. Yeah. I could retie my shoes. I don't like these socks. I'm going to go get a different pair of socks, untie my shoes, do all this stuff. But hearing that from them, which is essentially the same message, delivered a little less bluntly than no one is going to wait for you. Yeah. It was received a whole lot better.
Mm-hmm.
So correction, depending on where it comes from, how it's delivered, kind of those Q source circle backs, it's so important.
Yeah.
And your journey in F3 really started around the same time that you became a father, right?
Yeah.
So what's the impact that you've seen with F3, whether it's your shield lock and learning from, other dads in your group? What's been your journey as a father? How has F3 Omaha helped you grow to be a better dad?
So between the shield lock, COTs, where people are constantly bringing that, this is something that I learned, this is a shortcoming that I had, and even some of these podcasts, I feel like there are a lot of times where I am making a tangible change in my life because of something that I heard in a COT or hear. There have been some funny moments where I'll text somebody after listening to, not to get you too built up here, but there have been times where I text a guy after listening to an episode and I almost like fangirl a little bit, and it was like, oh my gosh, you said this, it was so great, that was so deep, I love that. And then I see them in person and I was like, I'm sorry, that was a little bit much. Like, I know that I just repeated your own words to you.
Yeah.
Apparently I'm like a Canadian bacon groupie now, but he had a lot of great stuff to say. I really appreciate it. But the shield lock initially was born kind of selfishly out of, I'm a new dad and I want to surround myself with people who I consider pro dads. And it's shifted since then, people coming in and going out. And I'm glad that it has, because it was a little self-serving. Like I never said specifically to any of these guys as we were putting it together that it was like, I think you guys are all stellar dads, and that's why I want to surround myself with you.
Yeah.
But that's really where it originated from.
Yeah.
And as it currently stands, the group doesn't it isn't all dads anymore. And I think that's been a good change, just because there are some differing opinions, and it can be a little, I don't know if insular is the right word, but can become a little bit of an echo chamber sometimes if you're only hearing one position, or getting the opinion from people who would have the exact same opinion as you based on certain things.
Right.
Yeah.
And it sounds like your pro dad view started, even before you went to F3, because it sounded like you were doing a lot of night duty and getting the bottles, and you were changing a lot of diapers. And so I'm curious where that comes from. I know like for me, my dad worked all the time. He was an alcoholic, so I didn't have a great relationship growing up with my dad. So I have a son, and I wanted to have a great relationship with him, and really tried to be a dad without a manual. But I knew that I needed to be present and be active. So I'm curious where your pro dad philosophy comes from.
Yeah. So I don't know, central column of my pro dad philosophy is stolen from one of my past clients. And he always used to say, remember, it's you and mom against the baby. The baby is the enemy. You do everything together. Otherwise, it just builds resentment about, I can't believe he's over here sleeping. So we established that pretty early with both of our kids, as far as, all right, we're going to wake up, Maggie's going to pump. And we did a funny thing with our infants called a dream feed, where I liken it to trying to refuel the
mid-air refueling.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
The mid-air refueling, where it's way less disruptive to the entire household. If you can refuel the baby without them ever waking up and crying and like spiking cortisol levels or anything like that. So it was obviously much lower stakes than Air Force refueling fighter planes or anything like that. But it's okay. We're going to be really quiet, and we're going to have the bottle ready right at midnight, and we're going to get her fed, and then we're going to do another one at 4 a.m. and she's never going to wake up. And
sounds pretty high stakes to me, actually.
Did that work? Did that work?
It worked phenomenally well for the child. The problem with waking up every 4 hours is that you don't get a lot of REM sleep, though.
Yeah.
So it sucked for a while, but my wife and I we had a unified direction of us against the baby, with love for the baby.
Yeah.
Right.
We're going to dominate you, baby, with love.
Yeah, that's the way it should be.
This is quite the quotable show so far.
I am thinking we're done having kids, or at least that's what my wife tells me. But we missed out on this dream feeding thing. We just allowed every kid to wake up screaming, and
it's the secret.
Have the cortisol. So if guys don't have kids yet, or if they have infants, you should check that out.
Hit me up.
Yeah, I'm bummed we didn't do that. It's so cool, right? Just hearing, as you've gone through this, your life, right? Life has happened, and F3 has gotten to be a part of that.
Huge part of it.
Still on the second F theme, though, you also have mentioned a couple times Q source. And I don't know, sometimes, it's hard for a guy to know everything that F3 is doing, but I wonder if you would tell us a little bit, like, what's been your experience with Q source, and where have you found value in that?
Q source has been incredible for me, because it focuses on a topic which maybe doesn't come up during a beatdown or a pre-run. It's, I want to say, hyper-focused enough to bring out a conversation that otherwise wouldn't happen. And I catch some guff occasionally. I was at a Q source recently, and the slow pitch was like, had a lot to add today, didn't you? Because I don't think I said anything. And there's a reality that there are so many guys around me who have so much life experience that there's that adage of, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them in that proportion. I don't use them. I use way more ears, but it's because they're just gold nuggets falling from their mouths, where it's like, I just want to listen. I just want to learn. Teach me all of the mistakes not to make.
Yeah. How have you, and now I'm turning you into my personal psychologist here, but so I agree, but also have this competitive, controlling spirit that makes me want to come into that and like pretend like I'm the one that has all the gold nuggets to share. And then I end up talking and I get the opposite comment from Slow Pitch, which is, why didn't you let anybody else share? So how have you done that? Because you have this competitive spirit, you desire control and have it in some areas, but you're also really like wanting to grab, some of the wisdom around you. Like, how have you done all that? Because that's something I need to work on.
It that is something I have had to work on. I have kind of a nasty personality trait where I want so badly to relate to people that I will interrupt them speaking. Whereas like, oh, you're going on vacation to this place. I've been there.
Yeah.
Because I want so badly to make a connection with them
Yep.
that I have had to just like put myself in a spot where stop talking. Do not interject. Listen actively. Stop coming up with responses before they've even finished saying what they're going to say. So if there's something that I think is valuable, I'll definitely add that. But which I think is definitely where you're coming from.
Yeah.
You have a lot more value to add to some of these conversations than I do, which it's good that people are leading the conversation, because otherwise it can just be a little bit dry. You end up with 10 people who are more like me and just want to listen, and suddenly they're listening to silence.
Yeah.
So how about vulnerability? How has that worked for you as far as like, learning to open up, whether it's in a Q source discussion or on a pre-run or a coffee or in your shield lock? Like, is that been a journey for you to just really, as you make those connections, really share what's going on in your life?
Vulnerability has been hard.
Mm.
Even early on, I think back to somebody said it recently that you can invite all your friends to F3. And I have tried to do that, but there have been other times where selfishly I've thought to myself, well, maybe it's good that I don't have like my best friends coming to F3, because otherwise they'd hear me talk about the stuff that maybe I don't want to talk about with them.
Mm.
It's such an interesting balance there. The vulnerability definitely took time.
Mhm.
A lot of my early COTs were not what I would describe as vulnerable. Some of them were kind of copy and paste. What can I find on leadership online? And they didn't have a lot to do with me. I think we get into pre-runs and kind of the trauma bonding experience of
Mhm.
F3, where it's like we just did a really hard thing together, and suddenly all of my barriers come crashing down and I'm willing to talk about.
Yeah.
And initially it was, oh yeah, I'm going through that too, and I'll share. And over the last couple of years, it's become more of a, hey, who else is dealing with this?
Yeah.
Which sometimes gives me some weird looks about like, what?
Yeah.
But it's a genuine question coming from a vulnerable place, a meaningful place, and it is what it is. It's definitely taken time.
Yeah. I love it. It's also cool just, thinking about the number of places where you've gotten yourself around this group of guys that are 43 feet ahead, and then you're continuing in all of these areas, right? Whether it be on the running side or on the, parenting side, or even on, this side of things, like seeing other guys be vulnerable and allowing that to, like, you're chasing the right group out in front of you, which is super cool. I am curious for you, when we think about faith and that third F piece, what's sort of the backstory there? You referenced earlier, right? That, these guys, Wentworth goes to your church. So
Yeah.
there's something there with faith, but where does that fit in for you, and what's been your journey there?
This feels like a little bit of a copy paste also
Yeah.
from several of your guests. Usually the story is I got to college, discovered free will, and stopped going to church. I had a little bit of an expedited version of that. I still go to the church that I grew up in. I like to joke that I was born at Methodist Hospital and then was taken through the Indian Hills neighborhood over to 90th and Dodge, essentially where First Covenant is.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of the old ladies who will tell my daughter and my son, I remember when your dad was your size, which is an interesting problem to have because in some of their minds, I'm still a 7-year-old when I'm not.
Yeah.
Sometimes I act like it, but I'm not.
Yeah.
But having grown up in that church, faith was always a foundational piece of my life.
Mm.
We went to church every single Sunday. We were doing all the activities. I gave my life to Christ at a church camp out in Hordeville, Nebraska.
Mm.
It was a church or it was a church camp where my parents actually met. And so it wouldn't exist without Covenant Cedars in Hordeville.
Yeah.
And one step further, where my paternal grandparents met. So my dad might not even exist
Wow.
without First Covenant in Hordeville, or excuse me, Covenant Cedars in Hordeville. But
wow. That's awesome.
so it was very much foundational, and it was important. I kind of came to a crossroads in high school where I ended up stepping away from church, not so much faith, but church. We had an interesting dynamic in our senior high league where there were a lot of people who'd show up, and it was almost, it was run kind of like that teacher in high school that everybody loves because he treats everybody like adults, even though there should be some oversight. And there was a point where it was becoming less about church and more, let's just have a youth group where you get to do whatever. And the less oversight, suddenly things were getting handed over, and it was like, hey, just come up with a game for an hour. And some of those games got rougher and rougher, and I was a little bit of an easy target. And suddenly I'm leaving church with 2 black eyes. And it was I don't know, kind of an inflection point of, I like the church, but I don't like leaving here beat to shit every single Wednesday.
Yeah.
So I kind of turned away from the church and just wasn't that interested, and would show up and do all the Christmas and Easter stuff. And I think my parents kind of got it. And I never really explained that to them, but it just, the feedback loop of come to church, try to deepen your faith, get the shit beat out of you, was not great.
Yeah. Those dots don't connect very well.
Yeah.
Yeah. What, so then today, like, have you gotten back into a different rhythm today, or how did you make that?
Definitely.
change?
Reconnecting. I came back from college. That youth pastor who had been there was no longer there. Even the previous pastor was no longer there. And the current pastor, I don't know if you guys know Tuner. He's a pastor at our church. He's
Nice.
awesome.
Yeah.
The best. He made a really concerted effort to try to connect with me early on. He had moved to town, was brought in from his previous church in Cleveland. And he went out of his way to connect, and I really appreciated it. And it wasn't immediate, but it was more of a, I'd love to come hear a sermon here or there. And that just gained a little more critical mass. And I started dating my wife around that time, and she grew up Catholic, which is a departure from what our current church looks like. But she really embraced it. I didn't think that was going to happen initially, and I thought it was just kind of checking some boxes coming with me. But she started engaging with the church at an incredible rate, and that really pulled me back in a big way. So it's kind of been an incredible turnaround. At one point, I think I was ready to kind of wash my hands of church as a whole, and maybe specifically this church. And now we're deeply involved and just love it.
That's awesome. It is, you mentioned the copy paste, the number of us that have very similar similar journeys, I think is really cool, but also really reassuring, right? That there's like it doesn't have to just be one way forever, and that there's a lot of flexibility there, and that it's a decision you own, right? Like you
Yeah.
and your family make that decision about what you do and where you go. And one of the questions I would have for you as you think about just F3 and your story. How do you think, like, as guys come in, right? Obviously, we're not a Christian organization, right? And so I think we also do a lot of like community service kind of third F stuff. So how has F3 maybe impacted that faith journey for you?
F3's impact on my faith journey is it was subtle at first. I was quiet about my faith early on, especially within F3. I remember there was I don't know if it was the coop or the mess hall, but you specifically
Uh-oh.
had me pray us out one day.
Oh, okay.
And stands out in my head. You rapped the intro.
Oh yeah.
To
That was a
to the-
phase for sure.
That was a phase. It was very cool. I was like, how can you even stand up to these guys?
Yeah.
But I was never one who was super vocal about my faith. Despite being part of the evangelical covenant church, I did not take the evangelical part of that very serious.
Yeah.
So even praying out loud was kind of a like, all right, give me an hour to think about this bad boy.
Yeah.
And it put me in a spot where I had to think about the way that I pray. I historically prayers of gratitude, prayers of thanks, but it wasn't an open communication. It wasn't, I'm dealing with this, God. How can you help me?
Yeah.
So that's probably the most substantial way that my faith has changed through F3.
It's really interesting to hear kind of just this common thread of just you just developing as a leader through all these different things we've talked about. You really just become an example and lead on fitness, and in learning how to be vulnerable, and then you just getting an opportunity even just starts with just being given the leadership opportunity to lead a prayer, right? So I'm curious, what was it like for you to take on the challenge of leading a site? What was that conversation like, and how did you embrace that challenge?
It's definitely a challenge. And it was one that I was still learning about all the way to the end. It was, so I took over at the Coliseum in November of 22. And I took over from Tin Cup. And despite the fact that he gave me an incredible multi-page document about how everything is run, and gave me a tremendous amount of structure and heads up about how I should be doing this, I kind of disregarded all of that and was like, I know what I've been doing this a year. I know what this is all about.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I was a bad leader to start. So it's so funny to hear you giving me some credit for leadership, and but I was a bad leader. I was way too focused on the workout, and I was way too focused on what am I getting out of this today? And there was almost a little bit of a begrudging, like, all right, I'll do the leadership stuff. I really want to go try and catch up the black lung, but I'll do the leadership stuff.
Yeah.
And that took a while. And I think I got better at that as we approached a year. I ended up having to take a little step away. My son was born, it would have been 11 months and 2 days after I took the flag at the Coliseum. And I think, as all parents of one child feel, I thought, I got this. We got all of our systems down. I'm going to be back next week.
Dream feeding, everything.
Yes, the dream feed was great, but Charlie was complicated in a lot of ways, which we might talk about.
Yeah.
But I didn't end up showing up for nearly 6 months. I disappeared in October of 23 and ended up kind of just relying on the guys at the Coliseum for about 6 months. I subsequently came back around the end of March, and there were some incredible guys at the Coliseum who just like took the flag both figuratively and literally and ran with it. And I remember I wasn't super forthright about all that we were dealing with. And there was one point that Tater Tot reached out and was like, "Hey, what's going on? You got nobody in the hopper for your Coliseum cues." And that was something I kind of played a little fast and loose, where it was like, "Oh, this guy's the week before. Did that a few too many weeks in a row."
Yeah.
And that was noticed, and kind of had to say, "This is what we're dealing with. I haven't been around." And I think within like 7 minutes, 28 guys signed up and just filled up the queue list. That was like, gosh, just incredible. Incredible the way that I didn't have to do any work for another half year. Just take that off my plate. But a lot of having had to take that time away was because my son, he's been medically complicated over the last 2.5 years. He was born and crazy anomalies. He had teeth when he was born. He had kidney problems when he was born. He had silent reflux, where he would spit up but not spit it out. So he was ulcerating his esophagus every single time. And that led to him just waking up every 45 minutes, basically on the dot. It was like a physical alarm clock, which if I thought waking up every 3.5 hours for dream feeds was bad, waking up every 45 minutes on the dot and having to hold him and get him back to sleep for 30 minutes just for him to wake up 45 minutes later, we were zombies.
Yeah.
And that really came to a head. It took a massive toll on my wife, to the point where she developed pretty intense, very intense postpartum depression and anxiety. And she ended up having to be hospitalized for that. And I was solo parenting a newborn and a 3-year-old at the time. Pretty uncharted territory. You think you do a lot as a dad, and then suddenly you have to do everything, and you realize you weren't doing that much before.
Yeah.
But it was another incredible opportunity for the F3 family that I had developed, and for our church family, and just everybody around us to dive in and find out, how can I support you? What can I do? And whether it be the guys who knew I was missing out on the fellowship, who I think Stella took me to lunch 6 weeks in a row because he was like, "You just got to see somebody else. Like, you
That's
cannot
awesome.
only do work and take care of kids. Like, I have to give you some kind of respite from what you're going through." But we got through it and figured out how to move forward. But it was because of the support that we got through F3 and through our church, and the incredible villages that we built around ourselves.
Yeah. Something I want to just call out, because it as men, right, we're just not naturally good at talking about stuff. And so what I've noticed over the years, right, there's a couple topics that we need to bring up if we're going through. So fertility stuff, there's way more guys and couples going through that than you think. But you mentioned postpartum, and man, it is, from just thinking of my healthcare background, this is such a real problem that could impact any of our wives with any of their pregnancies or anything they're going through. And so I think, just so that guys hear that's something you've been through, and could likely be a resource for others if they're going through that, because it's a real thing. And as much as our wives or us don't want to admit it, like we got to take it seriously, because it can be fatal for some women. So.
Definitely. My wife has used the opportunity to become kind of a champion
Oh, that's
for
awesome.
That's outstanding.
for postpartum anxiety, depression, and all of those things. She's a huge fan of this book, Good Moms Have Scary Thoughts.
Oh,
And she's kind of made it her gift to give this book to every single new mom that she meets. There's sometimes where it's like, I don't know you that well, but I see that you're 8 months pregnant and you just visited our church. Can I give you a book?
yeah.
She's incredible. I love my wife.
That is
Just the best.
awesome. I love it. Just thinking through your experience as a Site Q and the experience you just shared, what like learnings, I guess, out of that did you come away with that maybe you could share as advice to other guys that are maybe taking on a flag or thinking about it, or maybe just to guys in general?
Definitely. Leadership as a Site Q is not going to look the way that you think it's going to look.
Mm.
And I think going in, I had this idea that it was going to be this, despite the well-written pages of notes about what I should expect.
I know.
Thank you, Tin Cup. I'm sorry I didn't read them
Poor
more
Tin Cup,
diligently.
he did all that work.
He did a great job. I thought it was going to be way more of a lead from the front, follow me, boys, kind of thing. And that wasn't what the Coliseum needed.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me way longer than I like to admit to figure out that was the case. And there are a lot of days where you've got to be a little bit of a Swiss Army knife, figure out what people need. And at the Coliseum specifically, we are not advertised as a bruiser friendly site, but we end up being that because of the nature of having the track, having the field. The lights are always on.
Mm-hmm.
The stairs are safe. They do a good job of cleaning everything out. So it gives people an opportunity, if they are hurt or they're coming back from something, they're in rehab, to still kind of be close to the fire, so to speak. And if your body is still kicking you awake at 5 a.m., whether you're able to go and do the workout or not, you can still get out. So it became a lot of walking with guys and hitting the track and forgetting about the workout. Doesn't even exist for me today. My job today is just to be here with you.
Yeah.
So you're not going through kind of an isolating thing by yourself. And I had to learn that from having been isolated myself and going through sickness and not having, whether it be sickness or surgery recoveries or some PT things, seeing that firsthand and realizing how much you really lose just because, well, I wish I could be doing burpees. No. It's so much more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The injury thing is interesting. I was at the flag pass for the quarry today, and Greasefire saw me wearing my boot and said, how many days do you actually go? Like, what's your record between injuries? Because it seems like you're injured quite a bit. And I don't think he's wrong about that. But the thing about injury is I remember really the first time I got injured, and guys like Tonight Show would do that walk with me in lieu of the beatdown. And he always used to say, when I was very appreciative of that, he'd say, I get more out of this than you do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized exactly that later, which is what you were talking about, which is how great it is where you can spend time with a guy who is this close to not posting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they show up, and then you see them get something out of it. And it's not a core principle that we have. It's just something we've just kind of all developed in our culture. So I appreciate you sharing with that, because I think it's one of the things that keeps injured guys coming back and sometimes re-injuring themselves.
Yeah.
I hope not, but maybe.
Yeah. Oh man, this has been fantastic. And first of all, I just want to say thank you.
Yeah,
like you were hearing your story. Just like, we say every guy's got a story, right? And it has a lot of power.
I've heard that in a song before, I think.
when we share it. But I would be curious as we kind of close, like, is there anything that we didn't capture or that you didn't get to share that you want to just get out there with guys that are listening?
Oh, yes. Leadership.
Yeah.
On becoming a new Site Q, if you really want to engage, start some fake Twitter beef with another site.
Yeah.
Oh, I have never been so engaged and so like creating people would show up. The Coliseum had a fake beef. When I took over, Oompa was still leading the Golden Spike, and we would go back and forth about who had the best turf in Omaha. And we were creating hashtags about turf takes and whatnot. And it was so much fun. And it is not fake internet beef is incredible. As far as getting people there.
I love that advice. Yeah, we recently Switchfoot was telling us about the brightest AO or the darkest AO.
I love that one.
Yeah, there's some good beef out there.
Yes.
Yeah. Come up with a tagline for your site and then find another site to beef it out with. I love it. Well, what about current state? Where do you need prayers, support, encouragement? When guys see you, what's something they should ask you about?
Yeah, so these are gonna feel like a couple more copy pastes. It's things that a lot of men in their 30s and 40s deal with, but I'm always seeking to be a better dad. I have this incredible wife who's an educator herself. She's a first grade teacher, and she's got multiple postgraduate degrees in education. And some of the things that she wants to do don't always jive exactly with what I think that a dad is. And she has these well-researched and well-backed things that is like, but no. So it really just comes down to figuring out where I can be a better dad. And then the second one that I think maybe resonates for more men is comparison. I struggle mightily with comparison. And some sleepless nights, I find myself asking myself, are we doing enough? Do we have enough? Am I enough? And looking at all of those proverbial scoreboards that we as men like to reference and look at. And sometimes that answer is tough. The reality is that we are enough. But sometimes it doesn't feel like that. So,
I have a feeling that you're going to realize that you're going to get some fangirl text after this podcast
from Canadian Bacon. I can feel it.
But I really appreciate you sharing that. Of course. When you open yourself up and you be vulnerable about those kind of things, you just never know who else is struggling with the same kind of thing. So appreciate you sharing that.
Of course.
Heck yeah. Well, again, thank you for doing this. Let's do a little NAMO to wrap up here. I'll start off. Brandon Flehardy, 40, The Plague.
The Plague. Mike Duffy, 43, Gator.
Chomp.
Graham Person, 34, Honey Maid.
Honey Maid. And what's the,
I don't have one.
You don't have one?
I don't have one.
We'll have to come up with one. What sound does a graham cracker make?
There you go. You heard it here.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
On our hands, hope in our chest. We're not defined by the weight of the test. Brothers in step, we carry the flame. Different roads, but the heart beats the same. Every man's got a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop, yeah. Every man's got a story inside. Standing strong, we won't hide. Every man, yeah. Every man's got a story. We've been broken, we've been bruised, but we rise again and we don't get to choose. Through the fire, through the fight, every man's story burns in the night. Scars on our hands, hope in our chest. We're not defined by the weight of the test. Brothers in step, we carry the flame. Different roads, but the heart beats the same. On a story to tell, from the valley low to the mountaintop yell. Every man's got a story inside. Different roads, but the heart beats the same. Every man's have a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop hill. Every man's got a story inside. Standing strong, we won't hide. Every man, yeah, every man's got a story. Every man's got a story. Voices rise like thunder, they roll. Truth in the pain, it's shaking the soul. Chains may rattle, but they break in time. Every man's story is yours and mine. From the struggle to the glory, every man's got a story. In the dark or in the light, we keep marching through the night. Every man's got a story inside. Every man's got a story to tell. From the valley low to the mountaintop hill.